United States, education is your gateway
to a great American campus experience,
to pursue your passions,
to navigate cultural differences,
to gain real-world experiences,
to learn skills for a changing job market,
to thrive in your career,
to give back to your community and to the world,
to be the kind of person that you wouldn't have dreamed to be otherwise.
Come study in the United States.
Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are doing great. My name is Anissa. I'm Education USA advisor, and I'm very happy to welcome you all today at our wonderful session about standardized testing. So before we start, let me briefly tell you about our program. So we represent the Education USA virtual project, and we provide interactive webinars. We share useful resource materials. We have informational courses, and on our platform, you can meet like-minded individuals. We are everywhere, so you can follow us on our social medias. We have a Facebook, Telegram, LinkedIn, but most importantly, we have a website, which is called My Education USA Online, where you can find all the needed information. Let's talk briefly about Education USA. So Education USA, it's your official source on US higher education. We are the official branch of US State Department, and we represent the education in the United States. Across the world, you can find about 430 centers in more than 175 countries. So in every place, you can find an advisor who can help you to go or to get closer to your American dream if you want to pursue your higher education. All Education USA centers across the world are dedicated to provide you with accurate, comprehensive, and up-to-date information about higher education in the United States. So we as the Education USA try to make sure our students know a lot of information and have contacts with various universities. That's why every month we prepare the webinars on different topics, and you can see the list of our sessions for this month. We will have 2 more webinars after this one at the end of June. So please stay tuned, subscribe to our channels, subscribe to our pages to learn more and get information the first. Today, I'm very, very honored to have the session about tips and tricks for standardized testing. We will be talking with students, Education USA alumni, Lizzie Arcania and Amina Asadova, about the standardized tests, right? The tests which scare everyone. I'm sure many of you have heard about those tests, even if you don't plan to apply to US and to universities in the US. I'm sure you have heard those scary names like IELTS, TOEFL, Duolingo, maybe SAT, right? SAT usually scares everyone. But today we gathered here to actually tell you that this is not that scary. And, it just takes some efforts to pass those. And I'm not going to do that alone. I'll have 2 beautiful ladies, Lizzie and Amina, who will share their experience on taking those tests. So Lizzie will be talking about IELTS, right? And Amina will be talking about SAT. So it will be a panel session. I will be asking ladies questions, and they will be responding one after one. You guys are also very, very welcome to ask your questions. Please, you can ask them in the comment section, in the chat here, or if you watch us on Facebook or YouTube, ask your question there, and we'll definitely answer girls about them. Okay, so before start, I would ask you ladies to briefly introduce yourself so our watchers can know more about you guys.
Well, hello everyone. It's nice to talk to you today. And I'm Lizzie Arcania from Georgia. I recently graduated and I plan to continue my studies in Hungary. I got into 5 European universities, and today I will be sharing my experience with IELTS test, and I would love to hear your questions.
Hello, everyone. Also, I'm very glad to meet all of you. I'm Amina Asadova. I am from Azerbaijan, and today I'll be sharing my experiences about the SAT.
Awesome. So, my first question would be, Lizzie, you can start first. So, can you tell us when exactly did you take IELTS?
Yes, when I took IELTS test in October 3rd to be exact. And I took IELTS test because I desired to continue my studies in Europe or in United States, and therefore I needed some kind of proof. And when I started to get ready for the application process in September, I decided to get ready for IELTS test and took it on October 3rd.
Okay, guys, just to give you an overview, IELTS is an English proficiency test, right? So we take an IELTS test in order to prove to universities that we can speak, read, understand, write in English. That's correct, Lizzie?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Amina, and you took the SAT test, right? And
Yes.
when did you take the SAT test?
Last year on the 2nd of December.
Okay. And just again, to give you an overview, guys, SAT is not an English proficiency test, right? SAT is assessment test. So you take it in order to show to US University your academic skills. Like it's assess how well you prepared academically to education, in the university. So it's not a language test. It's different. It's assessment test, but it also has an English part. And like girls will talk more later about it. So I think we have Fariza here, right? Fariza, are you here? But Fariza is joining us and she will talk about TOEFL and Duolingo, which are also English language proficiency tests that we're gonna that you guys also would need to take if you want to prove that you can speak, understand, write, read, basically your proficiency in English. Okay, awesome. So if you guys don't mind to share, Lizzie, can you tell us your scores for each section? And if you can you tell us like what kind of sections exist in IELTS and what were your scores that you have received for those?
Of course. Well, in total, there are 9 bands on IELTS test, and you get 9. You get scored out of 9 in 4 sections: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. I achieved an overall band of 7.5 on IELTS test. And to break it down by section, I got 8.5 in reading. I got 8 in listening, 7.5 in speaking, and 6.5 in writing. That's my scores, and it just sums up and it's divided by 4 to get your overall score, which in my case was 7.5.
But I think it's an impressive score because you have to tell, like, right? You are very modest, Lizzie. The highest score on IELTS, like for each section, is it 9 for each section
9.
or it's different? So it's 9,
It's
and
9.
you have 8.5 from
Yeah,
first 2
in
sections.
reading.
I think that very impressive, and you have to be very, very proud of yourself.
Thank you.
Yes, Amina, what about you? Can you tell us about your scores and like if you can briefly tell what kind of sections in the SAT and what were your scores?
So the total score is 1,600, and for each section there are 2 sections: math and reading and writing. For each section you can get maximum point of 800, and from reading and writing I got 640, and from math it was 690.
Oh wow, that's also very, very impressive. Okay, good. Farida, can you hear us? Okay, I think Faris, there are still some challenges, but we're trying to solve that. Okay, so you guys, I mean, your scores are very impressive, and I think the next question which I have, you probably will say, no, there were no challenges. But if maybe you had some, challenges when taking the test, maybe you could tell me what, like for you, Lizzie, for instance, you had 4 sections, and out of those 4 sections, which of them was like the most challenging part of the test? And if it was challenging, why?
The most definitely it was the writing section. Time management was a significant issue for me. I struggled to write my essays effectively within the given time limit. It was like I had to write a well-organized essay with clear arguments, a vast vocabulary, and the time was too short for me. But I really tried to tackle this problem, and I wrote essays every single day to just try and manage my time more efficiently. But I would say that with like writing, and the second hardest was probably speaking, because well, I'm not native English speaker, and in my country, in my family, nobody knows English, so I had to just sit in front of the mirror and speak to myself. And it was like I knew how to speak, but the delivery, I wanted to stand out in a way. I wanted to use like advanced words to get high scores, and I often reverted to simpler words, and that was definitely a struggle. But practice always helps, and I spoke to myself every day just to get better.
That's interesting. That interesting. So, were you like really stressed about that? That like, for instance, you're always late in time, and or that you can't speak to anyone, or how like did you cope with the stress? You had when you
Well,
were
yeah.
thinking about it?
Yeah, it was kind of stressful, but I think I'm really good at stress management because, well, at my school, we always have exams. So we have like 10, 20 exams a year. So I'm
Wow.
like accustomed to stressful environments. So just taking a deep breath always helps, and it helped in my situation. I just try to get concentrated on my goals, and why I just reminded myself why I wanted to write IELTS test and why I wanted to get good scores, and just that motivation boosted my confidence, and then I was empowered to study more and study better.
Okay, that's good. That's good too. I think everyone should learn to be, stress. They have to have the skills of being like stress resistant. It's a good skill to have. Thank you. What about you, Amina? So, I mean, I know whenever I say about SAT to students, I think they get scared, right? Like SAT scares so many students. And can you tell me, like, you were brave enough to
Yeah.
take the test. So, did you find it challenging? If yes, which part was challenging, and how did you like, cope with that? Were you stressed about that? Can you share your experience, please?
Yeah, I could not say that I was stressed, but I had limited time, the same as Lizzie, because I started preparing months before my exam. So I started preparing in November, and for SAT, like everyone knows that 1 month preparation isn't enough if like you are know English very well, like at a certain level, or your math is good. But I was calming myself down. Like we are taught hard lessons from math at our school, so I knew that I will score better and it will be easier for me to prepare for the math section. So that's why I was focusing mostly on the reading and writing part.
Okay, okay. But I mean, 1 month, it's still like, and you still scored pretty well, 700, like 690 out of 800. You have to tell, right? It's like
Yeah.
you had almost no time to prepare, taking into account that you have school and stuff, but you still could score that very that well. I'm very excited to learn about the tips you will share with us later. Okay, Fariza, we finally can see you. That's
Yeah, you
good.
did that.
Yeah, and we can hear you. Yes, awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, Farisa. So, Farisa will be sharing about her experience on taking TOEFL and Duolingo tests. So, Farisa has taken both of them. So, Farisa, can you tell us, for instance, out of those two tests, why you took those two? And which one was more challenging? Which one was less challenging? Or, for instance, maybe each of these tests was challenging. Can you tell us about your experience, please?
Sure. So I took my first English test on the November of 2023, and that was TOEFL. I was preparing about 4 months, and that was really challenging. But unfortunately, my scores was not really good. My score was really low. So, and then I decided to take my first Duolingo English test, and I took it on December of 2023. And of course, the most challenging test for me was TOEFL. that's really stressful. That's so complicated, especially the reading and writing sections. So my Duolingo experience was much more better. I got my desired score, which is good, and I applied to the universities with my Duolingo score.
Okay, okay, awesome. So, Fariza, so how did you like handle like stress you had? I know like TOEFL probably, as you said, was more stressful for you. The same with Duolingo, but I mean, how did you like handle the stress? Maybe you had some tips or like some, I don't know, meditation strategies or something.
Uh, if to be honest, I didn't use any tips when I was preparing for my TOEFL exam because it was my first experience and I was just practicing my skills. I was taking everyday practice and it didn't really help me. So on the Duolingo, I was more experienced and I used a lot of techniques like don't learn too much, like just trust to my I just trust to myself and
Mhm.
that's really helped me. And of course I really practiced my, for example, in the TOEFL I got a at a low score on my writing section, and I knew my fails. That's why um, I practiced my writing skills more than
Mhm.
it was before, and that was my boost on my score.
Okay, so for instance, you know the fields you need to work on, and like it helped you, right? Because of your first
Yeah.
experience. Okay, awesome, awesome. Um, discussing that, you guys already told us that you had not all, like I think all three of you had very limited time for preparation, right? So, Lizzie, for you, it was also a month.
Yeah, I started in early September.
So you started in early September, and you took the test in October. So you had
October.
1 month.
Yeah.
Preparation took only 1 month. Do you think it was a good strategy to be preparing for such a short time?
Well, I think that it was enough for me because I had free, like my September was completely free. I
Okay.
started like I had no lessons, I had no school. Therefore, I created a study schedule that included daily practice for each sections, and I knew that my reading and listening did not need much of an improvement. I just needed to see what the test was like and just get to know the structure of the test. But for that month, I only practiced like writing and speaking because these were the weakest points for me. And I used ChatGPT a lot. It helped
Hmm.
me because when I wrote an essay, I did not have a tutor, and ChatGPT corrected my essays. It gave me some tips or for how to correct my grammar mistakes or what words to use for better vocabulary. And yeah, it's just about it's depended on studying techniques rather than time, I think, because like if I had 2 months, I would not have studied more. I think that I would have like rested a little and
Mhm.
still would have done the same.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. What about you, Amina? So you also were preparing just 1 month for such a
Yeah.
hard test as SAT. Like, I mean, you told us already, but can you tell us once more, like, why it was such a short period of time? Do you think it's enough? Would you recommend to do the same to other students, or maybe you would suggest something else about the time preparation?
For me, before taking a test, I was actively involved in competitions and also events beside the school. So I had a lot of things to do. My schedule was intense. So that's why it was a little bit hard to focus exactly on the test. But I tried to somehow make time for the preparation. For me, I think 1 month, it's a little bit not enough. It could be half and a month. and maybe 2 months, that's okay. But if you, let's say, have a good scores in math, or like you believe in yourself that you could write, you can cope with math questions, I personally advise you to mostly practice the writing and reading section, because for me, English is not my official language. It's not my mother language. So that was an extra challenge for me to learn. And the same situation was for me. No one was speaking in English in my family. So it was not my mother language. So that was another challenge. So that's why I advise to whom which they not use English in their daily life, to focus on more on English, like writing English.
But in case, as you said, if they like have no problems with mathematics, right? They're good with math.
It will be easier. Like you could spend more time on English.
Okay. Faris, what about you?
As I mentioned before, I spent a lot of time on my TOEFL preparation. But when I was preparing about 3 weeks on my Duolingo test, and that was enough. I mean, it's not very difficult test. That's why 3 weeks was enough for me.
Okay.
So,
So you guys, like you all say, like 1 month, 3 weeks, right? But for instance, if you talk about the timing, it also depends on hours. Like I could prepare 1 month, but study like 10 hours per day, right? Or I could prepare 1 month and study 2 hours per day. So what was your strategy like? Even if it was like a short period of time, 1 month, but how many hours, for instance, per day or per week were you spending like to prepare for the test and to get the scores you guys got? So just to remind, Lizzie got 7.5 average score, but she had 8.5 for first 2 sections, right? Amina, what was your score? I'm sorry, for the SAT?
1330.
1330 out of 600, right? And Fariza, your Duolingo score is 120 out of 160. You see, so you guys still, yes, you had a very short period of time to prepare, but in terms of hours, how many hours it took you to prepare per day or per week? Can you guys tell me? Like, Lizzie, you can start.
Yeah, well, I usually tend to study better in the morning. So I woke up really early. I was up at 7 a.m. I was writing essays, and I had like the strategy that I had to write at least one mock exam a day. So usually a mock exam is 2.5 hours. I wrote that, and also what I tried to do was just think in English at all times, because when it comes to speaking, it's better to have your mindset all to the English language. And I try to speak in English all day long, even to myself. It seems a little crazy to speak to yourself, but when it comes to exams, it's necessary. And well, after the morning session, I had a little break, and in the evening, I tried to do one section, whether it was like writing, reading, or listening. It depended on the morning one. When I like saw the scores, like you usually know what your scores are in reading and listening, and where I got the most mistakes, I would turn to that section and go over it again. So I gave it a little more time.
So in total, in hours, how many hours it was per day?
Probably, I don't want to say like too much, but probably 5, like 5, maximum of 5 hours a day.
Per day, right?
Yeah.
And how many days per week you were preparing?
Probably 5.
5. So if it's like 30 hours per week.
Yeah.
So even if you say you prepared like 1 month, in hours, it's an impressive number of hours, like 120 hours of preparation, which is a lot. And I think I mean, that's one of the reasons, right, why you scored that high, because you did devote the time. So you probably had no school in September if you were preparing.
No, I didn't have school. So
okay, that's good. That explains things. Thank you. Amina, what about you? If you think about hours of preparation, how much time you spend?
When I also consider the classes, like not only the preparation, I would say that it will be same for me, 4 or 5 hours maximum a day, and our lessons were all of the days of the week. Like even it's Sunday, it doesn't matter. We were still having classes. And for me, I am a night bird, so I like to study early evening or at night.
Oh,
So that's why it helped me a lot, because in the morning we were having school, and also we should prepare the school homework and also like extra classes. So I was doing it in the morning and in the noon, but then when it came to the evening and night, I was studying for the SAT, because that's my most productive hours. So I was spending 4 or up to 5 hours per day.
per day is 5 times per week also, or you were studying on weekends too?
No, also weekends.
Okay, so like I guess 7, 30,
Yeah, it's like
around 130,
yeah.
140 hours per month for the SAT, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's also good, and I think yes, even if you guys say 1 month, but in terms of hours, you did prepare a lot, right? Okay, thank you, Fariza. What about you? So you said that you were prepared for Duolingo. You prepared only 3 weeks, but how many hours it took you, like per day, for instance, to prepare?
So I think that it took me. I spent about 3 or 4 hours per day because uh, I took my Duolingo in December, and that was my school period. That's why I didn't have too much time for my preparing. So I also prepared at night. I was preparing for my upcoming test at night. So 3 4 hours. That's my maximum.
Okay, per day. But for instance, when you were preparing for the TOEFL, you said that it took you 4 months to prepare. But what about the timing? Did you spend like also 3 hours every day, or it
No,
was
that
less?
was much more, much more. I think I spent about 5 or 6 hours per day because that was summer vacation and I had more time, more free
Mm-hmm.
time. And I was studying every day, even in vacation, even in weekends.
Okay, interesting. A very fun summer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So, I mean, I just want those who watch us, they hear your scores and they're like very impressed, right? 1 month. Okay, I can do it in 1 month, but they have to understand. Yes, it was 1 month, but it actually was every day 5 or 6 hours. Not It's not like you can, just open the test once, read everything once, and at the end you will get 8.5 for your reading, or you will get 600, 690 for math or something. So that's why just guys understand. Yes, it can be 1 month, but with the condition that you study every day, minimum 4 or 5 hours. Okay, good. And now some of you like already talked about some of the tips you guys would share when passing the test. But if you could right now summarize, for instance, Lizzie, what do you think for IELTS, maybe for each section, you could highlight what a student needs to do, or what do you think a good tip a student have to follow in order to score well at each section?
Of course. Well, I think that in reading and listening, you should do lots of mock tests. It's crucial because these tests help you become familiar with the format and also the timing of IELTS test. It also can highlight your strengths and weaknesses, and then you will be able to just focus on your preparation areas and improve your weaknesses. For me, it was definitely essential. Like mock tests were essential in achieving high scores in listening and reading, because when I wrote a test, I highlighted the wrong answers. Then I went back to the wrong answers and asked myself, why was it wrong? And why did I make that mistake? And after asking those questions, I became more familiar with the structure. Of course, and also there are many different types of questions, like true and false, multiple choice, and you can definitely see which of them are easier for you and which of them requires more time. And so I would say that for those two sections, mock tests are definitely a solution. For practice, there is one thing that definitely helped me, and that was recording myself while I speak. I recorded myself. Well, I had some of the general questions open in my laptop, and I read them out, and then I started recording myself and listened to the tape. And that made and that showed me what words I used frequently. And I tried to just write down those words and find better, like more advanced synonyms for those words. So the next time I would speak, I would try and look at the paper and use those more advanced synonyms. So my vocabulary points would go up a little bit, would go up, and my speech would be more dynamic and impressive, maybe. And also, I try to be quick while speaking. Like I am involved in debates, and IELTS speaking is kind of like you are performing a debate because it's argumentative speech, and it's also this topic that you should definitely emphasize while preparing. For writing, I would say it's like, I don't know. Probably the key is consistent practice. Probably write as many essays as you can on a wide range of topics, and just seek feedback, whether it's from feedback, ChatGPT, or maybe your friends. You know, they can, like, proper feedback can definitely make your writing better. And for me, the time was always problem. So I know that there is an hour on the writing section on the test, but because you are more stressed and nervous, and the time flies by during the test, I usually had 40 minutes for those two sections, and I try to write down, write both of the sections in 40 minutes, so I would get more time on the test to review my essays and probably make some corrections. So yeah, that would be my advice. And probably lastly, it's about stress management, and it's like how it's important to stay calm, because if you're like super nervous at the exam and don't concentrate on your tasks, your mind flies somewhere else, then all your hard work goes to nowhere. So yeah, it's key to just breathe in, breathe out, and be calm.
And just to remind everyone that you, Lizzie, were preparing without a tutor, right? So you did everything by yourself. And the feedbacks, as you said, this was mostly ChatGPT for you.
Yeah.
What about speaking? Like, how did you evaluate your speaking if you were preparing?
I did not. Well, I found some of the online things where you record yourself and send the recording to someone. It was like IELTS tutor, probably. I don't know. And you just get the feedback. And I did that once, like 1 week before my speaking test. I would say that it didn't say much for me. Like, I already knew that I needed improvement while listening to my own voice recording. So yeah, that technique definitely helped me more than any teacher.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Lizzie, very much. Amina, so what about you? So with SAT, with two main sections, right? There is English and the math part. Some also students take the essay part, the SAT essay. But if we focus on those two major parts about English and math, what would be your tips, like on passing each of the section? You did talk about, already that if you're good with math, prepare for your English part more. But what if a student is not that good at math, or he's just average student? What kind of suggestions or advices you have?
While I was preparing, I also did some practice tests on Blue Book. Like, it's the official app. When you are going to take the test, before that you download that app to your computer, and on the test day the test is uploaded to that app, so you are opening the app and doing the test. And there are also some practice tests. I was doing them, and also the Khan Academy. It's their official partner. So there you can look to up to all of the sections, all of the like even the math, some topics like algebra or advanced math, or the same with the grammar, reading and writing. You could look there for explanations of questions or the topics for free. And also I wrote down some the wrong tips that I did, so I want to share it with them.
Sure.
I was doing all the tests, like the full length practice tests, and I want to say that be more strategic. Don't do the same mistake as me. So highlight the wrongs or where you failed, which questions you don't know. So doing the full length test again and again, it tires you. You are being tired, and then the efficiency goes down. So I think that it's not the good way to practice. So focus on what you did wrong. And when I was reviewing my practice tests, I see that most of the questions I get wrong are from the same topic. And by each test, I was doing the same thing. So nothing changed. I switched my strategy to review my wrong questions, and then my score rise. And also during the test, I advise to start from the easy questions that you could answer and then go to the hard questions. Why? Because when you start with the hard questions, you spend much time on that. And even if you cannot answer the questions, you feel like nervous, and then you cannot even answer the easy questions. And also it can be related both to the math and to the English. And especially for the English, I would advise to start with the grammar part. So in the English, we have a lot of questions about text, about reading, and also about writing. Most of the times, the writing questions are at the end, and they're a little bit easier. So you are learning grammar, and I will advise to start with those questions because they require less time to spend on them. So if you know the grammar well, and then go to the text because they require a lot of time to spend. And also we have the calculator for the math section. I really advise you to practice that calculator before the exam, because I didn't practice for myself. And when I opened that on the test day, I had really big difficulties because I didn't know how to use it, and I lost a lot of time on that to figure out how to, let's say, do the square up. So that are some tips from me to be considered.
I mean,
yeah.
so whether the calculator like installed in the app, or it was like the physical calculator?
Yes, it's installed in the app. So when you're once the test day, you are going to the center, and when you open your computer, all other apps are blocked. So you cannot use any other app, and you cannot quit your app. So they install the calculator there. So you don't need to go to another page or just waste time. So you can click on the calculator, and it's not just simple calculator. You can also write their functions, and the graph will show you. And also, yes, yeah. And also, I can advise that if you're not comfortable using that uploaded calculator, you can always bring yours. So I brought with me my calculator just in case. So I advise you, if you don't feel comfortable using that calculator, bring yours.
And it's allowed, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What about time? Like how well you felt the time, because it's also limited, like, in terms of time.
Yeah. For the math section, as I mentioned, we are taught hard lessons. Like for that reason, it was easier for me in the first section and second section, like modules. It was a little bit easier to answer the math questions, but the hardest one was the second module of the English and grammar, because if you're there have the strategy, if you're performing well or above the average on the first section, they are giving you a little bit harder questions in the second section.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they don't differ that much, but it's a little bit harder. So the hardest part for me was the module 2 of the verbal.
Okay, I see. Thank you. Fariza, now it's your turn, and you have to talk about 2 tests, right? TOEFL and Duolingo. So, what would be your tips, for instance? What would maybe you would do differently for TOEFL test if you would prepare right now? And what are your tips for Duolingo test? I'm very interested in Duolingo because for me it's such a different test. It has a very different structure. So, what would be your suggestions? And I'm very interested to learn about the tips on how to prepare to Duolingo, for instance, as well as to TOEFL.
Okay. First, I would start from my TOEFL experience. So, if I would really recommend you guys to use timer while you are preparing for your test. That was my mistake because I didn't use it at all. Especially when you are practicing your speaking section, it's very important to time yourself in order to be sure that you would say good response on the test itself. So it's also important to use templates to both writing and writing and speaking sections, because that would save a lot of time on your test date. And I think that I would practice more my reading section because I got a really low score on my reading, as I mentioned before, because I didn't use my timer, and that plays a big role on your test. And I think that's about my TOEFL. Yeah.
Okay. What about Duolingo? What are the tips you suggest for Duolingo?
If to be honest, I don't have any specific tips. The only tips I can recommend you is to practice a lot, because as you know, on the website of Duolingo, there are a lot of practice tests which are really helpful. And of course, and also the templates are also required for Duolingo. There are a lot of multiple tasks, for example, describe the picture, what it's as speaking and both writing. Also, of course, timing is also required for Duolingo. There are also 4 sub-scores as on TOEFL, and I think that the Duolingo is just the easier version of TOEFL. There is anything different, I guess.
Okay, so to summarize everything you guys said, I just want to say that we probably timing is very important, right? It's crucial for all 3 tests. So do remember about that you are limited in time when you respond to questions. Second, I think everyone said that it's important to review your mistakes. So if you have wrong responses and you keep doing those mistakes, you probably need to stop, you need to pause and understand why those mistakes are occurring. So actually you can, do better on the next text, for instance. Third, I think it's very important to review your answers. And if you guys do not have a tutor, then use tools which are available, right? They're online platforms, or as Lizzie said, she was using ChatGPT for writing. Amina was sharing that she was using Han Academy, right? And she actually practiced on the Blue Book. So the app you use for digital SAT. The same Fariza. Fariza also said that you can practice on the websites of each site, both on TOEFL and Duolingo. They have the trial tests you can try. So it's very important to actually practice before the real test, because you can also, as Amina was sharing her experience with this calculator. So whenever the test happens, you don't feel lost, right? You don't know which button to push and stuff like that. Okay, did I miss something, guys? Maybe there is some final thoughts you want to share. You want to add, which I didn't tell, which you think is important. Okay, I have my final question. So is this really that scary to take those tests?
No, it's not.
For me, it was really scary. I mean,
But you took it, right?
Yes. Before the
Basically,
test it is, but after the test it was not. It's like, why was I scared?
Okay, exactly. What about you, Amina? I think everyone has this question. Okay, SAT.
I would say that I had this scary moment when we already started the test, because I went to the test center and there was no internet. So we should connect to the internet, and in other countries the test already started. So it's like they're sending the code to the centers, and you're typing the code and tests opens on your computer. And while you're joining late, there are some doubts like why you join late. So we had delayed like hour or hour and a half. So we were really stressed, and at some point we thought that okay, our exam is canceled, or they will switch it to another date, like they will postpone it. But at the end, I don't know, somehow managed to connect to the internet, and they sent us another code. So I think that it's the hardest tragedy that could happen on the test day, but we still somehow try to write the test. So I think that if it doesn't happen, it's not a big deal. You can write your test, and after the test, don't be nervous, because okay, you are nervous, and that will in any case not like increase or decrease your score. So it will be only decreasing your motivation. So that's why don't do that.
I think, Amina, what you said was actually a good example because, for instance, SAT, I think it's not available. So for the SAT, you only have to go to a test center and you take the test. In the test center, even if it's digital now, with Duolingo, though, you take it at home, right? It's fully home-based test. You take it on your own laptop, and you are responsible for internet and connections and stuff. For the IELTS and TOEFL, though, I mean, I'm not sure, it's different for different countries, but you have a home edition test where you can choose whether you take the test either at home or in test center. And it's actually based on what you just said, Amina, safer to take the test in the test center, simply because if something happens, like your internet get disconnected, or there's some connect issue with tech or something, you have a proof, right? Because it's test center which is responsible for that. So even if, for instance, your test got canceled, the test center should reschedule it at their cost, so it's not going to be your cost again. However, if it was a home test and something happened to your internet, and you have no one to prove that it's like an internet issue, in that case, if the test would be canceled, then probably you would need to pay again to take the test later. So maybe, like, if you guys are thinking whether to take the test at home or to go to a test center probably would be a safer option in case if something goes wrong, like with internet or tech. Okay, so ladies, I mean, thank you very much for all this. I haven't noticed how 15 minutes have passed. Like, I mean, I'm surprised it's been 15 minutes as we're talking and discussing things. We have some questions for you, which we would like you to respond to. So I will ask them, I will read them, and you guys can respond one by one. Okay. So there is one question, and I think we did cover it during the conversation, but I will just maybe if that person have missed that. So Muhammadun is saying that he have been preparing for the TOEFL exam for once, but unfortunately his scores on practice tests is not changing. So what you guys will suggest him to do, what he has to do to make sure that he's practicing but his scores are changing, probably increasing?
Well, I don't know, like TOEFL exam that good, but I would say that just go through your mistakes. It's the best way to improve, and see in what tasks, in reading or in listening, in what tasks you make that mistakes and why you make that mistakes. So the next time you will be more careful in those sections, and probably your scores will rise too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you guys want to add something, Amina or Fariza?
I don't think so. Like, recognition of your mistakes is the most important part of your test preparation, and that's so crucial.
Okay. Amina, what about you?
I would say that beside the understanding which topics you did wrong, I would say that you should practice them more. Like, okay, once you watch the video, watch the explanation of the, let's say, topic or the specific question, and if they're finished, like you should not do it that way. So if you did the mistake in that part, that means that you didn't understand some things or you calculated wrong. So you should practice it even more than you were doing before. So if you wanted to increase your score.
You mean the same type of questions where he had mistakes, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Komron is asking which level of English someone should have in order to start preparation for any of those tests we just mentioned.
Well, it depends how much time do you have and what scores are you aiming for. For instance, I knew that I had B2 plus at least. And I started the month before and got a C1 on the test. So I think it depends. You can have either B1, A2, but it depends like on time. If you have a year or two, then it's not really necessary to know English. I think it's like it affects lots of situations.
But do you think that your high level of English, B2, is considered to be high level of English, right? Helped you to get the high score?
Yeah, yes, probably, because I did not practice that much in reading and listening. That was mostly what I had already known, and I spent most of my time practicing speaking and writing. So definitely, yeah.
Okay. Amina and Farisa, what do you guys think? Which level of English we should have?
I think that for SAT, you should definitely have high level of English, like at least intermediate or upper intermediate, because the difficulty, the hardness of the questions is really hard, and most of the questions are related to the poetry, and that poetry is written on Old English. You're even struggling not to understand that, for example, the sentence, but to understand the words, because they are different from the nowadays English. So I think that having higher level of English would definitely help you.
Yeah, plus, as you said, like SAT is designed for speakers, native speakers as well, right? It's not a non-native speaker English. So that's why, like, it's assumed that your English is already well developed enough. It's your native language, and thus the English you meet at the SAT English part is very complicated and hard to understand. So yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. Farisa, what do you think? What about like Duolingo and TOEFL? Which level we should have?
I would say that for TOEFL, you should have at least intermediate or upper intermediate, because it's required your good proficiency in English. But about the Duolingo, I guess that intermediate, that's pretty good, because in my case, I prepared a month, and that was enough to boost my score.
Okay. Also, because like I would to add to what just Farisa said, TOEFL is like academic English, so the passages, lectures you hear or you read are from academic context. That's why probably the higher the level of English you have, easier would be to understand the content. Okay, we have another interesting question, and the person is asking, what about British English or American English? So I guess, was there any difference? Do you think you need to study specific type of English to prepare for any of those tests, or it really doesn't matter?
Well, I believe it doesn't matter. Well, I took IELTS, and it's usually like British English test, because it comes from Britain, as I know. But I have always studied American English, whether it was with spelling or like with everything. I know American English. And the accent as well. And I definitely think that it doesn't matter, because I think that in scoring criterions, they say that it should be either in British English or in American English, and it's not necessarily one or another.
Okay, thank you. What about you guys?
I would say that doesn't depend that much on whether it's American or whether it's British. But from my experience, what I've seen, it's they mostly depend on the American English while you're taking the SAT. So practicing American, I think, will be like more strategically right. But as I said before, also practicing the poetry, like all the English.
Farisa, did you have any difficulties like with your British or American English? What do you suggest?
I would say that on the Duolingo it's mostly American English, but in TOEFL, I guess on listening they are changing. I mean the American and British accents. So I guess that you should practice both of them. You at least would be confident in yourself and in your comprehension.
Okay, yes. And just to add to what this girl said, so it really doesn't matter whether you use British English or American English when you're responding to questions in IELTS or TOEFL, because there you have a speaking part. And as Lizzie said, your accent does not count toward the scoring they tell you. The same with writing. Whenever you type an essay, if you use an American spelling, that would be okay. No one would really punish you for that, right? Because they do know that. And as Farisa said, if you will be listening to, for instance, TOEFL assignments, you would hear different accents, especially when you will be preparing. It again will be different accents. It's done on purpose because English is speaking at different countries, right? In British, we're speaking in Britain, we're speaking English. In the US, in New Zealand, for instance, in Australia, and all those accents are different. So they kind of expect you to know them all. But which one to use, it's really up to you, and it's not going to affect any of your scores, none of the scores. But as Amina said, with SAT, probably, as she said, would be more strategic to study American English, because in SAT you don't have to really speak or write. If you don't take the essay writing, you mostly would be reading and reading and responding to questions in English. Here, I guess it's also wouldn't matter that much, but you would probably what matter is just the proficiency, right? The higher the proficiency, the easier would be probably an understand and make understanding of some words which are been using from Old English and stuff. Okay. Good. Thank you. We have another question about teacher from Tajikistan. Komron would suggest you to reach out to Education USA Center in Tajikistan, so maybe they will suggest you someone. Anel is asking, what is the difference between IDP and British Council? I guess you mean those who write the test, right? So Lizzie, maybe you know something about that.
Well, I don't know about anything about IDP, but I wrote my IELTS tests when I registered for my IELTS test. It was on British Council site. Maybe that's some kind of difference with where you write the test. I don't really know, but I wrote a test in the center with many other students, and it was comfortable. It was quiet environment. So I don't really know what IDP. So I will not be able to answer the question.
Okay. So basically, how to say? So we have the organizations which create the test, which write the test. So as far as I remember, IDP and British Councils, they are in partnership and they create the IELTS test together. It's just that in some countries, it will be the representation of British Councils agency which conduct the test. In some countries, it will be different organizations, but they all, if they do conduct IELTS test, they have the partnerships either with British Councils or International Development Programs, which stands for IDP. So it really depends where you take the test from, but it's the same test. It's just two partner organizations which work to create the test, to conduct the test, and probably have different agencies in different countries present it. But there shouldn't be. I don't know the bigger differences outside of it, but if we talk about the IELTS, I guess there should be no difference in terms of how the test is conducted either by IDP or British Councils. But we would definitely suggest you to learn more if it's really concerns your country. We have the next question about GRE test. So today we've been focused on undergraduate tests. We definitely will conduct a session about preparing for the graduate tests. GRE is a graduate test which you take if you want to apply for masters. To prepare for GRE, I would say maybe the first step would be to check the official website, and they do have some preparation materials online which you can start using. And also you can reach out to Education USA Center in your city, or you can email us and we can share some resources that are available for you to use to prepare online for all the tests. Also, just to remind everyone who watches us on YouTube or Facebook, please subscribe to our channels. Please subscribe to our pages so you can learn more about the webinars we conduct like this. You get the notifications first. Okay, I think there are no more questions, right? But I do believe that we have questions that have been asked in the registration form. So let's see whether we do have some time to respond. Do you guys have 5 more minutes to respond to those questions? Okay, and so the question is, the first question, I heard many stories when people were disqualified and had to retake the exam for a different reason. Now I feel a little anxious about it. So I would be grateful for advice on what I shouldn't do during the exam.
Well, I would say don't look at other test takers at all. Just focus on your test, focus on your laptop, and don't look away. I would say just be all in the test. So there will be no other reason for someone to have questions about you or have you disqualified if you are all concentrated on your tests.
Mm-hmm. Amina and Fariza, what do you guys think?
So, I would say that most of the times the disqualifications are based on the cheating, but I will not say that it's like available on the SAT, because when we're going to test centers, they put the desks away from each other, so it's nearly impossible to see the screen of the person who is sitting before or after you. So, and on the left and right, so it's impossible to see. And in the SAT also, it doesn't depend whether you are cheating or not, because we are going to test center and there are a lot of rooms and there are a lot of test takers who are taking the test. So even if it's not in your class, it could be in let's say another class or in another, for example, test center. So if they somehow see that I think in the all test takers in that country, that test is going to be canceled, just not only for you but for all. So I think that bearing that in mind, so it will not only happen to me, and just focusing on the test, as Lisa said, which was in my case, that as I mentioned before, our test was delayed for at least an hour. So that was a pretty stress environment for us to still continue writing the test. So just focus on your test questions and don't look to the others.
Okay. Farita, and what about you? Because with Duolingo, it's a bit harder, right? You are on your laptop or by yourself, sitting in the room. How to not get disqualified? Because you can get disqualified for Duolingo easily.
I would say that you could get disqualified because of the internet connection. That I think this is the first reason of being disqualified. But also, it's important to mention that you are not allowed to take notes while the Duolingo test. And a lot of people were disqualified. For example, my classmates were disqualified because they didn't pay attention to the certain rules. Like before taking the test, there are some certain rules that you should follow during the test, and I think you should just follow them, and you would not probably get disqualified. And there is even no how to say, like, You could not even cheat during your exam because you are alone at the room, at least.
Okay, so just to some what girls just said, not to cheat, right? Not to disqualify, not to look around too much. And if you take a test like at home, if it's home edition test and you are responsible for everything around you, then you should follow all the rules which have been told you before, right? Because even if you take the test at home, you have still a proctor who is watching you, who is observing you. Like it's either they're online or they just simply record your test and they look at it later. That's why make sure you are concentrated on questions. You're just following the rules, not looking too much around, and you should be fine. And you should be fine. And, a second question, which is here, it asks about what was the hardest challenges and about your study plans. But I think you guys already shared about those, right? You did talk about what was the hardest thing and what did you do to overcome that. I think, Lisa, there is final question to you, which asks, do we have to pay to send our IELTS results to the universities? Is there a limited number of times we can send them?
No, I sent them to at least 20 universities and I have not paid anything. So it's completely free to send your results to universities. And I think that's the main difference between IELTS and TOEFL. One of the main differences too, because you have to pay to send results of TOEFL exams, but you don't have to pay to send results of IELTS exam.
So you could do it anytime, like after the test was done, you could just go to your account
Yeah.
and send your score. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. With TOEFL, you have 4 free universities to send your scores to, but it should be done before your test. So you have to like select those universities before you take the test. And I think Farisa with Duolingo, it's also free, right?
Yeah, that is completely free. I applied to more than 20 universities, and that I did that for free.
Okay, awesome. Amina, what about you? Do you know like how many tests, how many universities you sent the test scores for free or no free or not free?
I don't know exactly, but I think that there is some limit. Like you could send. I think that it's free also, but I think that there is a limit, so it's better to look on the site. So it's there. It's written there.
Okay. Thank you guys a lot. I took more than 1 hour of your time, even more, but I really appreciate all the effort you put for today's sessions, all the tips you shared, and I hope our students and everyone who have watched us today do understand that it's actually doable to take all those tests, and it's actually doable to score high, even if you prepare for a very short period of time. But you have to have a plan, right? As the girls said, you have to plan ahead, you have to know your mistakes, you have to review them, you have to use different materials, and so on to score well on this test, to score high, and to use them to apply to any university. And also, I hope that you know that you have options. If you don't want to take a TOEFL test, you can take Duolingo. If you don't want to take Duolingo, you can take IELTS, and all of them have enough materials for you to prepare. With SAT, there's an option like ACT test, but still, some like even I know how scared students get when they hear. Maybe it's just from my own experience, but SAT usually scares people a lot. But it's actually doable. You can prepare 1 month as a Mina and score 690 for sections, but like 1,330 overall out of 600, which is impressive. I think you are in top 5 percentile or in top 2 percentile, right? I mean, your score is pretty high.
I think so, yes, but I don't remember exactly because I took it last year on December.
You guys are very modest. You guys are very modest. You have to be very proud of yourselves because you scored very well, and all of you are in top. Trust me, as advisor, 5% of the applicants who score that high. Anyways, thank you again once more. It was wonderful session. We were very happy to learn from your experience, and thank you for everyone who have joined us today, who have been with us for the past hour. A reminder, please follow us on all social medias. We are Education USA Virtual, or we have My Education USA online website. Sign up so you can get notifications first about our new events. Thank you, and see you all soon. Bye.